Should I plant my succulents in pots or garden is a question I hear often from my customers. The answer is a little bit longer than a simple pot or garden, and in this video I'll compare the two growing environments. For those of you looking for a quick answer, in my experience, succulents tend to grow better in the garden if you live in a frost-free part of the world and have a sunny garden that does not flood. The reasons for succulents usually doing better in the garden are many, and here in Australia these plants are often incorporated into outdoor plantings. It is not unusual to see full succulent gardens. However, growing succulents in the garden is not always the best course of action. Let's have a look at some advantages and disadvantages. Some of the advantages are lots of root space, ability to search for nutrients, cooler soil during heat waves, more constant soil temperature, and minimal care requirements. Planted in the garden, succulents have pretty much unlimited root space, and they will spread their roots far and wide in search of nutrients. Because they have all this space to stretch their roots, garden succulents also tend to grow bigger and faster than their potted counterparts. Thanks to the more constant soil temperature during hot or cold weather, succulents planted in the garden tend not to suffer as much. They can still burn or freeze, but they tend to be more resilient to the extremes. In my experience, whenever I put struggling pot plant in a garden, it magically perks up and all of a sudden grows beautifully. However, despite growing in the garden sounds like a clear winner, there are disadvantages too. The main disadvantages of growing succulents in the garden are poor soil, frost or extreme heat and hail damage, and animal or pet damage. Succulents have an amazing adaptability to poor soil, and many tend to grow fairly well where other plants fail. Having said that, even succulents can struggle to grow well in heavy soil. And here's a prime example. I've planted these succulents in a part of the garden that has good soil. I've worked compost and good potting mix through the heavy sandstone soil we have on our property. All of these succulents were just single cuttings about 5 months ago and have multiplied and grown quite a bit. But when we go over the other side of this cup here, the succulents are not doing that well. And the reason for that is, over here I have not amended the soil at all, and the heavy sandstone soil is restricting the growth. The bare stalks on this Graptosedum indicate stress, and the plant seems to be looking for better soil to grow in. The succulents are not dying, but they are also not looking their best, all due to the soil in this garden. If you have one of these little buggers, they can obliterate the succulent garden in 1 minute flat. While he may look like a 100% good boy here, when him and his giant brother get the zoomies, no succulent in the garden is safe. Wild animals such as birds, possums or even bigger lizards can do quite a bit of damage too. Once succulents are planted in the garden, it can be hard to protect them from extremes as they cannot be moved. Strong UV during heat waves or frost can badly damage and even kill succulents. You can, however, help garden succulents by creating shade during hot sunny days or cover them in frost cloths when frost is expected. I would not recommend growing more succulents in the garden if you live in a part of the world that experiences regular frost and snow during winter. There are some frost-tolerant succulents, but the great majority will die in freezing temperatures. Now let's have a look at pots and some of the advantages of growing succulents in pots. These include ability to move pots as needed, size control, and protection from animals on the ground. Depending on the size, pots tend to be easy to move. During winter, potted succulents can be moved indoors or a greenhouse, and in summer you can place them in more shade to protect them from burning in the hot sun. The growth can also be controlled more in pots. These two plants, for instance, are the same age, but one is much smaller as it has never been repotted. The other succulent has been repotted every time it became root bound, and as a result is over 4 times the size. Some succulents can be a little weedy and grow way too much in the ground. For this reason, they may be better off confined to pots so they do not take over your garden. Succulents in pots also tend to be placed on tables and such, which decreases the likelihood of them being trampled by pets and wildlife. Unless you have a cat, of course. They seem to have a love-hate relationship with potted plants. And now for the disadvantages. Succulents in pots may need extra maintenance, need to be repotted all the time, and more frequent watering. One of the greatest disadvantages of growing succulents in pots is the extra maintenance. When succulents are confined to a pot, they only have access to the nutrients in the pot and completely depend on the quality of the potting mix. If the quality is poor, then it is likely the succulents will not look the best. Some succulents are also less tolerant than others and can do things like splitting the leaves in potting mixes heavy in nitrogen. In pots, succulents are less tolerant to extremes and can easily overheat and die, especially if the pot is black and sits in full sun during a scorching hot day. Because there is a finite amount of space in pots, once the succulent reaches all of it with its roots, it will need some nutrients to keep on living. The extra nutrients can come from repotting into a bigger pot with fresh potting mix, shaking of the old potting mix and replacing with new, or adding fertilizer. The frequency will greatly depend on the type of succulents. Some can live in the same pot for years, while others can deteriorate after a year in the same pot. Pots, especially terracotta, can dry out pretty fast in the sun, and during the warmer months, potted succulents may need to be watered quite frequently. Here in Australia, it can get pretty hot and dry, and when it doesn't rain frequently enough, I water my potted succulents every 2 to 3 days. Some plants, such as little sedum, get a drink pretty much every single day. To conclude, garden is a bit of a better choice for succulents, and in my experience, most succulents will grow better planted in the ground. There are, as per usual, exceptions. I would not recommend growing succulents in the garden if you live in a climate with cold winters or have animals that could damage succulents, as they do damage very easily. And that's it for today. I hope you found this video useful, and if you have any questions, leave a comment below and I'll do my best to answer. For more info about succulents, subscribe to our channel or visit our website succulentgrowingtips.com. Thank you very much for watching.